Paul, who I've known for over 30 years, well over 30 years actually, and he is the chairman of Prison Fellowship Australia. And I'd like to introduce him to you and to talk a little bit about the work of Prison Fellowship Australia. G'day, Pete.
Yeah, how you going, Andrew?
So, Peter, Prison Fellowship was started by whom and when?
I guess Charles Colson, the one guy that was indicted and served jail in the States for the Watergate catastrophe that happened over there. He became a Christian in that time, went to prison, served in prison, and I think he became aware of the challenges that people who go to prison have, both inside prison and getting out of prison, and how they engage back with society. So he started up a fellowship that's now sort of grown around the world.
Okay, so when did it come to Australia and how did that happen?
1981, I think, was the first, I guess if you could consider the official start of Prison Fellowship. He'd come a year before that to meet with some people, and yeah, so we sort of think of 1981 as the starting year.
Okay, and when it started, what did it initially look like? How connected to America was it? Was it underwritten by America, or what was the story?
No, I think it really is a fellowship. I mean, Prison Fellowship, by definition, is a fellowship of Christians who are really engaged in bringing the gospel to prisons. So I think it really started, I guess, organically in each state, people who had an interest in this, and there were some people working in the prison system as Christians, and had grassroots ministries in each of the states in Australia, and I guess it was a catalyst for bringing that together and creating this Australian operation called Prison Fellowship Australia, which is really auspices the operations of states.
Okay, so each state has some kind of a team or something. How does that work?
Yeah. So it's a federal or a national ministry. So we have a national board, and I have the privilege of chairing. And each state has a state-based office and ministry arrangement. It's slightly different in each state because of the different ways corrections are organised, and then that's administered in a national sense. We have a national office and a CEO and staff that the back end of the operations that facilitate what Prison Fellowship does. Each state has a council. The councils offer advice to the workers and volunteers in each state, and that's sort of the structure. So it sort of evolved from really a state-based grassroots organisation to become a nationally organised and administered organisation, and through that you get the governance and the sort of protocols that are needed to operate something in a sensitive area like prisons.
Okay, so before I ask what is it that Prison Fellowship does, so I think we need to probably explore just this question just briefly. Someone who is imprisoned, what challenges do they face, A, being in prison, and then B, coming out of prison?
Well, I mean, the challenge in prison is you are deprived of your liberty. You are controlled by the system. You are told when to sleep, when to eat, when to work, and when to have activity periods, when to be locked up. You have limited access, obviously, to your family and social networks from before, so there's deprivation of liberty and exclusion from society. The shame and the feeling of guilt that comes with being imprisoned and being sentenced to being separated from society. So all that comes with that is impacting on a prisoner's life.
All right. So when they're released, what are they going to face?
Generally, it's quite challenging for prisoners when they're released. They often, have mixed reactions from their community. Some community members don't want to know them. Some previous friends don't want to know them. There could be betrayal they have a sense of in their friends from prior to that. They may have enemies that are looking to even scores. There's a range of challenges. Not the least is the ability to be able to rebuild your life. A lot of guys that have spent time inside struggle to get employment. It's a real challenge. I've sat with many people that have been inside prison, talked about the challenges of getting out, and that's probably one of the biggest ones. They'll go to a job interview, they'll talk about, their suitability for a job. the employer will look at the CV and see a gap in the CV, and there'll be this awkwardness about what to do about that gap, how to respond to that, how to explain what happened there. And often I've heard of stories where they've got to that point in the interview, the prisoner has said that they've spent time in jail, and pretty well the interview's finished at that point. Or it might go on in a macabre sense, wanting to know what happened in prison and what's it like and all that sort of stuff. So it's quite unusual, but that's a real big challenge for a lot of prisoners.
Okay, so the word that is often used when talking about the problem with prisons, as far as going to prison, is recidivism. That means what?
The high rate of reoffending that occurs post release. So it's a real challenge. If you have committed a crime, you are at a much higher probability of repeating that offence. And I think that's associated with some of the issues I just mentioned before, the difficulties of re-engaging society, and how the experience itself has impacted you. So that's really one of the biggest issues with I suppose people that have served time is how do they stay away from that environment and reoffending.
Okay, for those who maybe don't understand the magnitude of the problem, it might help to put it into an economic sense. So the average prisoner costs the taxpayer of each state how much per annum?
Look, I think it ranges somewhere in the vicinity of $150,000 to $200,000 a year per inmate. That may have changed in the last few years with a lot of the changes that COVID brought and the employment challenges that prisons have had. But yeah, I think it's sort of in that range.
So it doesn't. You don't have to be an economist to figure out that's a lot of money out of any state budget or whatever to house a prisoner. And added to that, you've mentioned the great difficulty. Someone who maybe I don't know if this would be the case with everyone, but maybe a moment of time where they did something foolish or dumb and they end up in prison and it's almost destroyed their life. So now I want to ask the next question, and that is, okay, prison fellowship. So what? What is prison fellowship doing into that space, and what's the objective?
Well, I guess we're a Christian organisation. We're essentially a volunteer facilitation organisation. We are all about finding avenues for volunteer Christians to go into prison, share their story, share their life, share help and love with those that find themselves inside prison walls, and ultimately share the gospel. The basis of prison fellowship is that the gospel is the only thing that brings lasting change to someone's life. As a Christian myself, I've experienced that. That's the pivot point of Christianity. Jesus came to restore people, to bring about reversals in their life. They're going in one direction and you turn and follow Christ. So we believe that underpinning all of Prison Fellowship's ministry is this truth that Jesus can restore and bring lasting change to someone's life. In the environments that I've looked at over many years now being involved in Prison Fellowship, I've seen guys just keep repeating the cycle of crime, returning to prison. I met one guy that had been in prison 21 times. Some were very short sentences, but he'd just been in and out of prison, sometimes reoffending within a day of his release. So you look at that and you think, how can change be brought about in someone's life? And then the gospel is a clear answer to that. So we're looking to bring the gospel of hope in Jesus to people who find themselves in prison.
Are you succeeding in that mission?
Yeah, look, I've been involved in prison fellowship since 1993, so for over 30 years, and I've met countless people that have been impacted by the gospel. I mean, some find Christ for the first time inside prison walls. Some who have had exposure to Christianity and have heard the Christian story, may have been a Christian or associated with a church somewhere in their life, find Jesus again and return to the faith that they once knew. So it depends a little bit, but yeah, I've seen a lot of change in a lot of people's lives, and that's probably the most rewarding part of this sort of Christian ministry, that you see Prison Fellowship through its volunteers and through its programs and activities bring that message.
So what are the programs that Prison Fellowship would coordinate or oversee I'm aware of Angel Tree, so we'll talk about that in a
Yep.
moment. But I guess the prisoner coming out of prison, you mentioned, one example of a prisoner within a day reoffending because I'm guessing because of all sorts of reasons, none the least. They had a routine, they had something they were familiar with. I get that, but what's prison fellowship involved in that space of transitioning someone back into quote unquote normal society?
Look, there's a whole range of programs. When I originally began, it was mainly focused around um, preparing and resourcing volunteer Christians to go into the prison system, on a weekly basis, being involved in some programs ranging from just simple Bible studies to soft toy programs to activities in prison that you can find, some connection with the prisoners and talk about your faith when asked. We've extended that over the years. We have a range of other programs, ranging from ministries to the children of prisoners. We run some camps. We run the Angel Tree program. We run sporting activities. There's a group that formed from just young people who are interested in sharing the gospel through their sporting interests. So they go into prisons and play soccer, basketball, and what other sports the prisoners may engage in. We have our chaplaincy programs in some states. Some states have more extensive chaplaincy programs, and Prison Fellowship engages through that sort of mechanism, providing chaplains, training chaplains, and administering that. And then you have some post-release programs. We run some care programs after prison. They're more limited because once someone leaves prison, they usually want to find a community somewhere, and so. But we do offer some programs that assist guys outside, some transport out from the prison to their community, then some contact after that. Inside prison, we have a range of programs, and probably one of the most exciting programs, or in my mind, the program that perhaps the most potential is the prisoner's journey. Essentially, that's a study of the Gospel of Mark, and it invites prisoners to look through the Gospel of Mark, look at the life of Jesus, and then identify with Jesus in his journey, and then look at what the challenge would be once you understand who Jesus is. So that's been a very powerful program. I've had the good fortune to look at this program in other parts of the world. I went to Bulgaria and just recently to Kenya, just to look at how that program works. Very effective, very biblically based, and in some countries, thousands of people are attending the program and graduating and going on to finding faith in Christ. So those are the sorts of activities we're involved in.
So, two questions now then. What if someone said, hey, I'd really like to get involved with that? Maybe they've, for whatever reason, that they might feel called to, they can recognise the problem, so they want to be a part of the solution. How do they get involved?
Well, there's a website. Prison Fellowship Australia operates a website. And if you just go online, go to Google and put a search in, you'll find that there's opportunity on that website to enter your details, to find out more about being a volunteer, or about being a partner, or about being someone that can be involved in some of the ministries we're doing, or there's opportunity there to donate. We're entirely reliant on donations from people who are engaged with our ministries.
Well, that's going to be my other question. Like, there might be some people who say, "Well, I can't volunteer for whatever reason. I'm the life situation," but they may recognise, okay, this is a great thing. This is if more societies were able to solve the recidivism crisis, I would say, we as a culture and a society would be a lot healthier.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a very good argument to be made that, given the ability or the power of the gospel to change lives, that investment in prison fellowship or Christian ministries that offer lasting change is a good investment. And there are a number of research projects around the world that have looked at the effect of prison fellowships ministries in South America and in the US and other countries, and it's effective. One of the challenges is we live in a secular society, and so that interaction between a Christian ministry and a secular governing sort of state, it's a little bit of a challenge. But we've been operating for 30 years, and we're really proud of the ability of PF volunteers, workers, and staff to engage in that process and provide something positive.
So if a church wanted to bring prison fellowship into its missions budget, they'd be welcome.
Yeah.
And individuals can. Is it tax deductible for an individual to donate to prison fellowship?
Yeah, it's a qualified tax deductible charity in Australia, and we are governed through the processes that need to be eligible for that. And in each state, you can make contact with the office. You can make contact through the national office through our website. So we invite people to just become a partner in prayer, a partner in finance, become a volunteer. We have some really unique ministries, and one that I've been involved in for a number of years is a biscuit bake at Easter time, and my wife coordinates that for the prison that I live nearby. So about, I think somewhere in the vicinity of 60 or 70,000 biscuits are baked in Victoria for the prisons in Victoria, and there's about 7,000 of them that go through. I think about something like that. Maybe 5,000 biscuits get cooked for the prison that I attend. So there's opportunity for lots of people to do many things, not just finances, prayer, giving of their time, and just supporting us.
Great. Well, thanks, Pete.
No worries. Thanks for having me.